So in today's video I'm going to talk to you about smaller ornamental grasses. I keep getting asked, could I recommend smaller varieties, of which I can do. I've got several up here at Grassy Bottom that I would recommend. But firstly, what I'm going to say to you is, if you've got a small garden, consider putting a huge grass in like this one here, this Miscanthus Sinensis. And I say that because smaller areas can look overcrowded and very, very bitty if you start putting in smaller grasses all in the same area. And people get a little bit carried away when they first start, as did I. And I'm trying to save you a lot of mistakes that I make. And if you put bigger grasses into a smaller area and one or two, it'll be far better than 10 smaller grasses in the same area, especially if you're going to get carried away and get different varieties and different types. The one tip I'll give you, if you are going to put a lot of grasses into the same area and it's a small garden, I would go for something like, say, we'll choose this one because we're in front of it. This is Deschampsia cespitosa, and this is called Silver Mist. And it's a smaller variety, as you can see from that clump there. Very small, a very small grower, but en masse, it looks very nice. So I would go, what I'm trying to point out is that you should be going for the same species rather than putting 5 different types in the same area. So design-wise, it's not a goer for me. I've learned by my mistakes that I won't put lots of different grasses into a small area. Now, up at Grassy Bottom, I'm quite lucky because we got, quite a sizable garden up at Grassy Bottom, as you can see, and it goes further down there, and there's more than I can show you on this video, but it's a lot bigger than it looks. So, just bear that in mind. One big grass is way better than 10 little grasses that are all different, unless you're going to use the same type. So let's go on to mentioning different grasses, and we'll start with this one. Now this is called Calamograstus. It used to be called Steeper Calamograstus. It only reaches probably 2 foot at the moment in its flower. It has this typical grass-like leaf, and it has these lovely flower heads. That's what they're looking like in September in the UK at the moment. Now, the newer one, if the wind stops blowing, we can show you, is more green. Let the wind settle. It's more greener. You can see it there. It's more greener. That's how it comes out to start with. Then it turns into this. Now, during a rainstorm, it can become very lax and drop to the ground, but don't be fooled by that. It will quickly pick up to this. We had quite a rainstorm last night, and it's all picked up again. They bounced back lovely. So that's Calamograstus. Next to it, we've got a New Zealand grass, which is possibly one of my favourites. Definitely one of my medium to small ones. And this is called China Clover Rubra. Lovely grass. And it's, at the moment, that's about 2 foot again, in a 2 foot wide clump. But this is what it gets like when it's fully mature. This has been in here 2.5, 3 years now, coming up to 3 years, but it's a mature specimen. It's 5 years old. It's over 5 years old, and that's as big as it gets. So it's like 3 foot high by 3 foot wide, but it always goes back into its clump. As you can see, it's quite small in the clump itself. In the ground itself, it's about 1 foot in circumference. So it's still considered a small grass. Now, this one here is a Miscanthus, and it's a smaller Miscanthus, very small, this one. So this would do for your small garden as well. This is called Miscanthus Sinensis Red Cloud, and it produces lovely red seed heads, but it's past that phase now. It's going into its next phase, which is the cotton wool phase, the blowy phase. But it's a small one, and it only makes about 2.5 to 3 foot in any year. So that would be a good one for you. Now, just while we're on the subject, let's not go to these ones. These are the big ones. This is a Miscanthus Lutaria riparius that you don't want. It just wouldn't be worth having that one itself. So don't bother with that type. We've got other clump formers here, which are quite small. Now, I'm not going to really put you onto this one because it's quite an aggressive seeder. And it's called Eragrostis curvula, and it's called the African love grass, and it stabilises banks and all sorts. I've another one further down there, which is a bluer form of it. But there are different types of that one, and I would probably say don't bother with that one. Now, another great New Zealand grass, which is a smaller one, is this one here. Right, so that one is a Carex, and it is Carex testacea, and it's the Orange Sedge. Does really, really well. It's quite nice, but becomes a bigger clump. So really, that wouldn't. If you was going to put that into a smaller garden, you must get ready and expect that. So that's another small one that I would recommend that you get. Let's just walk up the garden and see what we can find on the way. So here we go. There's Andropogon dreadii here, which is called Weinheim Burgundy, and this is a really nice one. And it does have this burgundy coloured leaf. Now, at the minute, it's only got 3 stems on that one, and that's simply because it is a new plant, and it's a new plant in. So it's not massive at the moment, but it will be more upright and skinny. So for a small garden, that'd be great, because, you know, it's thin, so it'll fit into a small garden quite well. Further up. Now, eventually, if this one ever makes it to the market, then this would be a good choice for you. But this is my sporting one. This is a Miscanthus Sinensis type that I'm calling Sprite at the moment. It's very, very small, very diminutive, would look great. But it's on trial at the moment, so we're only 2 years in, so we've got to give it another, I'll give it another 2 years at least to see if it retains these features, because it comes from a striped zebra grass, believe it or not, called Gold Bar. So it's a sport. I've done a YouTube on what the word sport means, so if you look for that, you'll have a better understanding of what a plant does when it sports out. Next to it is Achinocloa macra, the Japanese forest grass, and I love this one. Look at that. That seed head is absolutely stunning. Absolutely fantastic, and I love it. And look how it's blowing in this little breeze up here at Grassy Bottom at the moment. It's lovely. We've got a sunny day, the sun's hitting it. Yeah, it's a good day to have ornamental grasses. So that's a good one. Now that will eventually, well, let's show you my hand. It'll probably get, so there's the plant itself, and it'll probably get that tall eventually. So we're looking at 2 foot, maybe 3 foot in some instances, depends where you keep it. It's not hard to keep this one. It's as its name suggests, it can take sort of shady conditions. It is called the Japanese forest grass, but it wouldn't want to live in the middle of a dark forest. It would live in the edges of that forest, to be quite honest, or on the edges of that forest. But it's truly stunning. And year on year, it gets bigger and bigger, and eventually we'll make them probably 2 to 3 foot clump, certainly in the UK. And it's stunning, and it's no trouble whatsoever, that one. So that's a good choice to have for a smaller garden. Here's a blue form. This is probably the bluest form you can ever get on any grass at all, and this one is called Elemis Magellanicus. It would require a bit more sun. It's great for a gravel garden. It's not at its maximum size because, again, it's a small plant. It's actually not doing as well as I would hoped here, but I'm still going to give it another year. That's its seed head. That's what it produces. So that is going to be lovely. The drier it gets, the bluer it gets. And that is a cracking blue. But another good blue one to consider is this one here. Helictotrichum sempervirens. And it's a bit like a fescue on steroids. And it has this almost explosive look about it, where it's very, very spiky, very porcupine-y type. And it gets a lot taller than that. Well, I say a lot taller. It gets to about 2 foot, maybe 3 foot eventually in its height. So the Miscanthus next to it, it would probably compete with that one quite nicely as it gets going. Hence me putting it here. And it'll do really well there. And it's a blue colour. It produces the same sort of seed heads that I've just shown you. They've already gone through. And it'll continue to get bigger year on year. So that's another good one to have. Right, so what other grasses could we show you? Here we go, Imperatus, Cylindrica, Rubra. Everybody's familiar with this one. This is the Japanese bloodgrass, yeah. And it is a superb cultivar. It's commonly called Red Baron, but to be honest with you people, that's a catch-me-all name. Everybody calls it that. I'm sure somebody called it that initially to make more sales. But everyone is pretty much like that. I've had Red Baron, I've had the ordinary one, this is the ordinary one, and I've seen no difference whatsoever. But that would be a really nice one for a small garden, giving you a lot of colour. And it doesn't get very tall. It gets taller than that. It'll double in its height within the next 2 or 3 years, and it will slowly spread itself, but from its clump. So it kind of what I call colonises. So as you can see here, it's starting to send a couple out, as you can see, look at them. They're starting to move away from its parent, and they'll colonise, but they do it slowly enough in the UK. They don't, where they come from, they can be very, very aggressive spreaders, and the green form is an absolute terror, apparently. It spreads everywhere. It's more of a weed for them, but not for us. Our conditions don't allow it to do that. Okay, here's another good one. This one's called Calamograstus Densis, and this would be a fantastic one for a small garden. It makes 2.5 foot. It has these lovely, typical straw-coloured seed heads. Now, they are a green when they first come out, and they are a lovely... Can't really... Oh, here we go. Look, the leaf, right. The leaf actually shows you what the colour of the flower is. That there... That's what colour the flower or the seed head itself will be. It'll be that lovely green colour. It does spread around. It will send out some seedlings. Try and collect the more upright forms. This particular form came via somebody who collected it wild. I think in the northeast Himalayas or somewhere like that, or maybe southeast Himalayas, I don't know. But the Himalayas, and he collected that one wild, and it's superb. And I love it, but they're all pretty much good anyway. So that would be good for a smaller garden. Now, don't dismiss things like this Millennia. This one's windsowl. It's, to be quite honest, it's 2 foot shorter than it was last year because we had that dry summer, and this is quite a dry part of the garden, and it would prefer more moisture. But Millennias get quite tall, and they don't occupy a lot of space. So, you know, for a small garden, consider tallness as well. You don't just want short grasses. If I had a small courtyard garden, I would get this into a container, this Miscanthus Sinensis that's showing about, I think I've been saying it's about 12 foot, but I think it's about 10 foot, maybe 11 foot at the moment. And I know that because this post here is 10 foot and it's at the same height. When it's not blowing over, it's at the same height as that, but it is about 1/2 foot to 1 foot lower in the garden. But that would be a cracking small... large grass to put into a small garden if you can contain it, because that is an aggressive spreader and wouldn't want to be put out into the garden. So Miscanthus, small gardens, you see, I would put this one in the garden every day of the week. That's a Miscanthus Sinensis, one of my favourite Miscanthuses. Not my favourite, but one of which I have many, may I add. So that's be a really good one. Now, Steeper Arundinacea, which is the pheasant tail grass, has now changed to Acnotherum. Is it Acnotherum? I think it's changed its name to Acnotherum. No, Steeper Calamograstus, Acnotherum. No, Anamanthil, sorry. I will get it right. This one is Anamanthil lesoniana. So, the old Steeper Arundinacea, it's one of the best grasses you can get for a difficult situation. So if you've got somewhat like a bit of a shady area, bit of a sunny area, it doesn't matter. This one will do it really well. If you're going to get one and you want it to spread around in your little small garden, put it into the best position you can give it, feed it to start with, let it seed and let it self-seed itself around, because I found with this one, it tends to put its seeds in just the right position for you. Never ever cause a problem. Okay, let's have a look up here. What we got up here? Never ever dismiss these types of Calamograstus. This is Calamograstus Eldorado, and it has this lovely, and it's starting to leaf again because I moved it, so it's sort of forced it to regrow, and it has this lovely golden variegation, or gold, as its name suggests, and it produces this lovely seed head, and that will stand lovely all the way through winter. And all Calamograstus is good for that in the small garden. And they'll do that. And this is another Calamograstus, again, that would do quite well for you, but I'll probably sway you away from that one. But anyway, going to this one. This is fantastic. Not for a small garden really. If you've got a small garden and you just want to put one grass in it, low growing, but with a big flower head on it, then this is the one you want to put in. This is absolutely fantastic, and it's already trying to put out its, there we go, look, they're new stems, and they will try and flower this year. In fact, I would not be surprised now if that doesn't reflower. And this one's called Lamprothiasis hyaeronimi. Bit of a mouthful, but it is what it is. It's a big one. It loves a dry situation. I would sway you away from putting that into your small garden. But as I said earlier, big grasses do look good in small areas, but not that one because it takes up too much room. Pennisetums. Pennisetums will do really well for you. Now this one here, if you just bear with me, this one here is possibly Cassian's Choice. We're not sure because I was given to it by a friend, and we're not sure. But the first year ever for me, it's flowered. These things tend not to flower this far up north in the UK. But it has done this year because we've had that cracking summer. So that's done really well. And in a pot, they look good in a pot. So for a small garden would be good. Again, China Clover Rubra, one of my favourites, I told you. And I put it everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Another one I would consider that would be good for your small garden would be this one here. And this is Pennisetum macrorum, and it produces these lovely, lovely sort of pipe cleaner type seed heads, and it's fantastic. It's a clump former, but it also spreads. So early in spring, you need to source out where the spread is. It will go from its base and it will push across and push another bit of grass up. Simply find that bit, rip it out, and pull it back. But it will seed, and it is quite, well, to be honest with you, it's quite an aggressive seeder, and you will find it around. But if you're prepared to deal with that, it's possibly one of the best and a designer's choice. They love it. Does tend to do this sort of thing if it gets caught up. I've got this lovely sculpture here, and it tends to get caught in things like this. So maybe we'll have a rethink about that, but it looks good inside it. So that's really nice. Now, another Miscanthus I'd recommend for the smaller garden is this one here. Miscanthus Sinensis China. Really, really nice. So, just think about pots for your small garden. This is Lima Sarinarius, a bit like Elemis Magellanicus, but a lot bigger. But you would not want to put that into your garden because that will spread. You will find that on coastal dunes in the UK. It has this lovely, lovely blue colour, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. But do not put that one in your garden because you will regret it very, very quickly. So that's really the ones I would be recommending. I don't want to go on because I don't want to stretch this video out too long, and I don't like to edit videos, so I like to do it as I walk around and show you, and that's why I have a continuation. I don't want to be stopping and starting and putting names up. If you want to know the names, I'd rewind the video, or contact me and I'll tell you which one it was. Because I realise I have a bit of a wacky tone in my voice, and I'm a bit, it's a bit, oh God, what's the word for it? I'm up in Lincolnshire, you see, so I've got a bit of a mixed vocabulary, really. Oh, while we're here, let's show you this one. Miscanthus Sinensis Kleiner Fontan, sorry. That's Kleiner Fontan, a very small one. It should really be bigger than that, but for some reason it's staying smaller. But it won't get much bigger than that, maybe making 3 foot overall, but it would be a really, really good one. So, what have we learned from today? Well, bigger grasses look better in small gardens. Calamograstus, Carl Forster, fantastic. That I would put in any small garden because it is thin. It always stays relatively tight like that. Over the years, it clumps bigger and bigger. Ivyton mass, it's over there. Look at that, how it's looking. We're in September. We're not 1st of October today. And look at that, it's just stunning. It's gone through that other phase of being green and purple, and it's gone into this straw-coloured phase. But look, it's still blowing, absolutely beautiful. And that's on mass, and would look actually equally as good in a small garden if you planted a single specimen. And I would recommend you plant a single specimen. And again, what have we learned? We've learned that, to be honest, I personally would go for bigger grasses in a smaller garden. If you need smaller grasses, then that is fine. But just beware that if you put too many of different species in a smaller garden as a design angle, it would look terrible. Too many. It looks bitty. You don't want to do that sort of thing. You really want to put in less is more. It's the old adage, but it's true. Less is more, especially on grasses. I would much rather have that in your garden, in your small garden rather, than the little Deschampsia. And I love all the grasses in my garden. I love. That's why they're in my garden. But I would much prefer to put that one in as opposed to that one. You might differ. You might say, well, I like that one. That's fine. It's a personal choice. But there are plenty of stuff to consider, plenty of small grasses to consider. Just before I finish, I'll bring your attention to this one. Now, because I'm a sad geeky type, and let's face it, I'm a little bit geeky on my grasses. This one here has produced this seed head. And this is, you can't get hold of this one really. A few people have got it. It's called Calamograstus, Kyger's Giant. And again, it was collected wild in the Himalayas and brought over to the UK. And it appears to be quite a nice grass. And I've put it here. This is its final destination, hopefully, next to the wildlife pond or the wildlife dip pools, which I shall be putting in here any second now. Anyway, right, so hopefully that's helped you out. That's helped you with a few smaller grasses that you would consider putting in. As I said, I've had someone recently specifically ask that question, but I've had it numerous times in the past. What's good for a small garden or small grasses? So that's a suggestion for small grasses that I hope you take on board, that you might consider putting in, and that will help you along. But don't forget, there is also big grasses that do the job equally as good in a small garden. Any questions, fire away at me, and hopefully I'll be able to answer those as well. Talk to you soon. Ta-da!